A functioning democracy does not lock up judges. I am gravely concerned about the utter lack of independence of the FBI and its weaponization under your leadership. I am concerned that the president is using this book, your book, as a blueprint, as he has said. It's a blueprint for revenge. And I am concerned that your eagerness, a childlike giddiness to carry out the president's revenge tour, you've shown yourself to be unserious in your statements before you were sworn in and some after. You've shown yourself unfit to lead this important agency. I was an impeachment manager for President Trump's second impeachment. It was a sad, solemn duty. And so I wanted to ask you about that. Mr. Patel, as you and the president continue to weaponize and investigate his perceived enemies, as you follow this blueprint, when can I, a former impeachment manager, expect the FBI at my door?
Ma'am, you want to know who was targeted by a weaponized FBI? Me. You want to know how and why? You want to know what I'm doing to
fix it? Let me move on.
Well, you should read the book because there's no enemies list on that book. There are people that violated their constitutional obligations and their duties to the American people, and they were rightly called out, and you should give that book to everyone in your constituents so they can read about it.
I won't be doing that.
That's their loss.
During your Senate confirmation hearings, you repeatedly denied having any involvement as a private citizen in the firing of FBI officials who engaged in the prosecution against January 6th insurrectionists. The violent rioters who beat and killed Capitol police officers, and whom you referred to as political prisoners. Since then, multiple whistleblowers have come forward, and we know that you likely committed perjury. At the same hearing, you claimed you were not familiar with Stu Peters, an anti-Semitic Holocaust denier, despite the fact that you appeared on Mr. Peters' podcast 8 separate times. 8 times. And you claimed not to recall. Mr. Patel, my second question is, should we worry more about your memory or your veracity?
We should worry more about your lack of candor. You're accusing me of committing perjury. Tell the American people how I broke the law and committed a felony. Have the audacity to actually put the facts forward instead of lying for political banter so you can have a 20-second donation hit.
Federal uncoupling, and really like the takeaway is like you don't actually want to go on a keto diet, you want to go on a mitochondrial uncoupling diet, and that's what you're doing with the keto diet, but people aren't even realizing it. And this is where the magic is that there's all these other things. If the end goal is really mitochondrial uncoupling, well, there's like 10 other things you can do to mitochondrial uncouple, and guess what? They don't involve just totally restricting your carb intake, and can actually bring in all these other nutrients that are beautiful for the body.
And to hold my skill, got nerves of steel and an iron will. Skin is bronze, my trim is chrome. Climb aboard, I'll drive you home. I'm a silver-tongued devil with a heart of gold. When I was made, broke the mold. My blood runs hot like molten lead. Pump you full, I'm gonna knock you dead. Yeah. Don't mince words, I spit them out. I won't leave room for any doubt. Get to the point, stop splitting hairs. That ain't getting leader of us anywhere. Sometimes it's better to be blunt, but is this some kind of publicity stunt? So are you with my appetite? Do you wanna grind with me tonight? Then tonight.
Yeah, buddy. A little Australian rock and roll because shout out to Australia. They have completely wiped out the Conservative Party. Like Murdoch Press is dead in Australia. There is no conservative who owns any urban seat in Australia after the elections just a few days ago. So Aussie rock.
Boy. Yeah, boy. We're going to be talking about some of that stuff. Can you guys hear me? Heidi Kuda checking in from the land of the terrible internet. Welcome everybody to Radpod and Not So Chill. Although tonight we've got some good news. I'm excited. My partner Hi-Fi and Jim Stewartson right there. Just bringing you some I don't know. Let's just go with good news right now. Why don't you off? I was very, very worried when I see MAGA Kremlin contingency lobbying on popes. That's not what happened. Quick little side note. Last week, we are two Catholic girls, of Siena, and today I walked into a Catholic church right as the new pope was announced, and when the meeting started sending me screenshots of this pope objecting to J. Vance, objecting to the cruelty of to MAGA, and I think this is a very, very move. Jim Stewartson, why don't you tell us what you know, please?
Well, let's see. What do I know? I know 3 months ago, Doctor, excuse me, Dr. Robert Prevost tweeted at JD Vance that he doesn't know what he's talking about. I know 3 weeks ago, JD Vance went to visit Pope Francis, and 12 hours later, Pope Francis was dead. And I know the Cardinals were selected in large part by Pope Francis, who was no dummy and knew that this is a long, long game, and that if any of his values, which, they're still religious and I don't agree with a lot of them, but he was a good pope in my view. He apparently made quite sure that they weren't going to pick some whack job. And let's be clear, there were a lot of whack jobs out there. The Catholic Church could have picked all kinds of people, Edmund Burke, a bunch of these guys, were also sort of hidden conservatives, right? Some of them being non-white and yet extremely conservative. So it's fascinating that the first American pope was picked, at this moment in time, right when America is losing its fucking mind. And so I can't help but see it as a direct answer and a direct pushback. He also retweeted things that were in favor of gun control, in favor of Ukraine, and most importantly and most vociferously against the horrific Nazi-like immigration policies of this administration. And as much as I am a non-believer, I've studied religion a lot over the last 5 years.
You've had to.
Yes, because it's a big part of what's going on. And so I see the appointment of somebody who still has some traditionalist views, let's be clear, but is much more aligned with Pope Francis than Opus Dei, for example, which is a big scary part.
Right.
I think we can look at this that particular thing as good news, and there are some other things today that were I think pretty remarkable.
Yeah. You don't get everything you want in a situation like this, and I invite everybody to watch our interview with Gareth Gore on his book Opus, because you can see that that Pope Francis was taking moves against these extremist factions within the church, not able to do everything because of the power structure, but certainly sending signals and also taking away apartments and financing from some of these QAnon cardinals that have been promoted.
The Opus Dei thing, I want to be clear. I just want to be clear on. So, Opus was supposed to vote on these restrictions that the Pope had put on, and they delayed until the Pope died. And the big concern was that the new Pope was going to not keep those edicts going, and it seems to me they probably will. So sorry to
And
interrupt.
yeah, correct. And it was basically more than anything signaling when the human trafficking stories were breaking that was connected to Opus. There was definitely a response, but Jim's correct. The other thing I wanted to say, speaking of whack jobs, of course, the QAnon MAGA contingency are already referring to the new pope as the woke Marxist pope. I hope he takes that as a great compliment coming from these truly evil people, in my opinion, who have been forcing people to live in an unreality. And I was talking to somebody about this earlier. Trump, in every way, has failed at reality, but he glides effortlessly in the lying universe that he's created. And I think that what I do hope. With this, new development is that there will be some sort of counterweight. And what Hi-Fi announced at the beginning, I think, is incredibly important because you have Canada, you have Australia, you have the Trump effect being a total rebuke in other countries. Keep in mind that politicians in both Canada, the pro democracy politicians in Canada and in Australia, were down double digits. And then the Trump effect actually turned that around because people, as Monique Kamara, our friend who's a geopolitical analyst, says, people are craving stability. They do not want what America has and what America is going through. And I'm sure if there's anything else we can report that's good news, please do so now, because I want to get to what you guys know about Libya, because I think that's a very important story.
Well, the other good news is was that Tom Tillis, who every once in a while LARPs as a human being, um, uh, is blocking Ed Martin from becoming U.S. Attorney for Washington, D.C. Now, that's good news. I don't give a shit who they put in there. Ed Martin, first of all, if nothing else, Ed Martin is like Mike Flynn's best friend, like literally. Grew up. Ed Martin runs Phyllis Schlafly's organization. Phyllis Schlafly is responsible for the anti-abortion movement, for making the ERA miss its date, all of the things. And so Ed Martin runs Phyllis Schlafly's insane organization, and Mike Flynn's mom was best friends, literally best friends with Phyllis Schlafly. These people have been connected forever. Mike Flynn's been going bonkers about Ed Martin and how he has to be, not so much. They bounced him, kicked him to the curb because he's a fucking lunatic. Even for the GOP, this guy is what, like, dude was going off after anybody who had anything to do with J6, was going after people's kids and families, and just being a fucking lunatic. And despite the fact that most of the GOP would have still voted for him, at a minimum, they're a teeny tiny little bit of let's not completely lose our minds, crept into the deep state in Congress. So that was also a bit of good news. And I think also finally a terrible bit of news for Mike Flynn's effort to become national security advisor, which is a whole other topic we should get into, because boy howdy,
You may as well throw some of that out there now, because once again, as I was reading your post about that topic, I just don't understand why Americans are not more angry that those who have been proxies for Russian intelligence and paid through cutouts for Russian intelligence are delivering news into American minds. And that is where I just I don't get it. I don't understand how people don't think that that is a crisis and an urgency when propagandists throughout history have actually been rung up for war crimes. Why is it okay? As you said last week, the White House press briefings are just QAnon chat rooms at this point. And, I'm talking about specifically about Benny Johnson. We know that through a cutout, he was paid by, affiliates with Russian intelligence. And here he is
Yeah.
delivering news.
Well, Benny, what you're talking about is, for people that haven't read my Substack, is that yes, so Mike Flynn and Benny Johnson, a confirmed subcontractor to Russian intelligence, agree that the worst traitor in American history, Mike Flynn, should absolutely be a national security advisor, the main voice in the head of the president asterisk of the United States to tell him about what to do. Now, to be fair to Mike Flynn, the other main contender is Stephen Miller, Joseph Goebbels impersonator. So we're not in the realm of great choices here, but Flynn would go in there and start. He'd send the SEAL Team 6 to get Hillary Clinton and shit. I'm like serious. Like he would absolutely do that. And so we have to, hope that this very slight movement towards, not totally losing our fucking minds, may hold.
Yeah.
We'll see.
It's so weird because what we have are, a bunch of criminals and traitors masquerading as an administration. It is so clear with every move that they make to demolish our institutions. And as Masha Gessen reported recently, she is already calling America a police state. And that is why I wanted to get Libya out of the way, because I think that that is likely a story that will get buried, or maybe not, since it's related to deportations. But for me, that is, once again, designed to stoke fear and outrage, but it's also absolutely cruel. And the other thing, for years, you guys have been saying that these guys have been this, pro bringing back some form of slavery. Well, what does this sound like when you're sending people off to fucking work camps?
That's literally what it is, right? I have to remind people that the guys at the top of this are clear, have been open. They're in favor of slavery, like for real. Curtis Yarvin, the guy who pushes the dark enlightenment bullshit that a lot of these guys are followers of, is openly pro-slavery. So is Pete Hegseth's pastor, Doug Wilson, is openly segregationist, against the outcome of the Civil War. That's what's going on here. The white supremacist narcissists combination is the thing that is probably the most dangerous and deep-seated evil in civilization right now, and these guys are no different.
So, High Fidelity, unless you have something you want to chime into that, I would very much like to talk about our guests for this week.
Well, did we talk about Libya?
Start looking at.
We haven't talked about Libya, Heidi.
Yeah, because
Okay.
yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
if I was supposed to talk about Libya,
Yeah, let's talk about
You
Libya
are supposed to
specifically.
you are supposed to
but
talk about Libya.
Haftar, but yeah,
Specifically, yeah, we got
yeah,
to talk about this. This is
yeah.
Right.
this, yeah, man.
So Saddam Haftar. So first of all, anyway, his father, Khalifa Haftar, is the Libyan warlord that both Wagner and Blackwater were backing in the Libyan civil war. Eric Prince was up on arms trafficking charges because he was sending arms to Khalifa Haftar in Libya. And now we're sending we're sending fucking immigrants to Libya to be in work camps, to be slaves in fucking Libya. We're like picking all of these countries that in the past we've just fucked up, right? We fucked up Libya, we fucked up El Salvador a long time ago, and don't forget that, right? El Salvador is a creation of the CIA in the 1980s. The reason why it went the way it did, and so it's remarkable to me that we're using all of these sort of disaster areas that previous uh, uh, people are responsible for as concentration camps for slave labor. Anyway.
Yeah, I also, I'm not great at reading the chat and listening to you guys, so I'm going to try to focus on this and turn off the chat because there's just so much good stuff in there. But one of our guests in the chat was saying how in his neck of the woods, anybody who mentions Russia is still hit with like, oh, that's a conspiracy. And, I don't know what it's going to take for that to stop. But I'm doing a report on Jason Stanley's Erasing History. This came out before the election and it, previews everything that we're going through. But just to be clear, I'm going to try to find the quote at some point in this hour. Um, Jason Stanley, who is, America's one of his foremost scholars on fascism, he wrote How Fascism Works. He actually now works in Canada. He gave up his post at Yale and moved to a different university for obvious reasons. And he basically said that of all the countries that we discuss, that the pure fascist state that we are witnessing right now is Russia. And so I just want, if anybody's unclear on that, I wanted to make sure that you understand that from Jason Stanley, who doesn't equivocate on using the word fascism. And like we've said on this show many times, I think we're going to be debating that word as we're being marched off into the gulag. So I think it's time for people to get pretty savvy on that. Yes, Jim.
Oh, yes, I agree. Putin is a fascist. It's a fascist state. There's no doubt about it. But it also draws roots from communism, and it's important to remember that, especially when you're talking with your magas. Putin renamed his airport to Stalingrad and indicated he was going to change the city to Stalingrad as well from Volgograd, on purpose. Trump renamed May 8th to Victory Day in World War II. So let's be clear about something. In case you missed it, we dropped some bombs on Japan and stuff in the summer of 1945 after Germany surrendered. My grandfather was on ships in the Pacific fighting Japanese after May 8th. We spent months fighting the Japanese until we dropped bombs on them. And regardless of whatever you think about that decision, that is American history. Our Victory Day was September 2nd of 1945, when the Japanese surrendered. May 8th is Putin's Victory Day. That's when Russia celebrates their victory over the Germans. Aren't we the heroes of civilization? But remember, not Putin, well, I was a slip, but Stalin and Hitler were allies until June of 1941. In May of 1941, by the way, a high-ranking delegation of Germans went to Moscow to celebrate May Day. There was a Victory Day. May Day with Stalin. And then a month later, he fucking invaded them, causing a massive bloodbath across all of Russia for 3 years and costing Hitler World War II because he split his forces because he was fucking stupid. Anyway, the Victory Day in America is not on May 8th. That is Victory Day in Russia, and that is why Donald Trump is doing that. Yes.
Okay, so that's the history behind it, but I need to point something out because Donald Trump does this repeatedly. And this is a sign of the psychological warfare, the false reality that is attempting to be imposed upon people. Stop paying attention to Donald Trump renaming shit. Stop being outraged by it. Simply fucking ignore it. Because when Donald Trump is gone, when Putin is gone, when all the fascists get their asses kicked, they'll probably still be hanging out in China because they're entrenched pretty deeply. But all this bullshit, this Gulf of America crap, this will all go away. And it will go away faster if people start imposing actual reality upon it.
Maybe, but let me say something. He was going to change Veterans Day to Victory in World War I Day. Like, therefore, taking a holiday away from all the other veterans, Vietnam veterans, Korea veterans, across the board, Iraq veterans. And it was because of the outrage that he backed away from that. And that's good.
Right.
And so on that note, and I wanted to say something, my dear friend Gal provided me some information, and I tweeted it out, and it appears to have prevented an ICE operation from unfolding in Phoenix. Simply by saying, "Yo, looks like there's a bunch of ICE."
This is happening
at the corner of 19th Avenue and Thomas in Phoenix, in a church parking lot. And guess what? A bunch of people and news crews showed up, and none of the motherfuckers left. So just giving a shout out to not ignoring it sometimes, not to discount.
Yeah, no,
you're correct about not you don't want to over invest in this kind of bullshit, right? But the actual resistance and the voices fucking matter, and I'm proud of everybody who helped make that happen. Love you guys.
Yeah, the pushback does matter, but we know that I ask everybody to please go to Ruth Ben-Ghiat's Lucid, and if you are a subscriber, and maybe even if you're not, I'm not sure what she does, but she has a video link, and the video link from May 4th, in no uncertain terms, she talks about, and she is, of course, our nation's leading historian on Italian fascism. But she wrote a book, Strongmen, where she studied a variety of techniques from strongmen and, gave us kind of a wide range of what to expect with the fascist playbook. She said she's never seen anything accelerating like this and accelerating this quickly. So, and she did not pull any punches. And I think it's very important that we take a look at the reality of it. And again, when we look at these regimes, they sometimes end in 12 years, sometimes 20 years. sometimes 44 years. So I am not so certain that this is all going to be over, in a short period of time. I think we're possibly in for a lifetime fight. One thing I want to talk about before we do get to to some of the clips from our guest is in Jason Stanley's Erasing History. It's just important for me to even like wrap my head around it as I share it with you guys. The reason that these one group erases a history of another is the latter becomes significantly more vulnerable to domination and conquest. So when you have Putin and the Kremlin trying to erase the history of Ukraine, they are doing it because it's much easier for a colonial power to justify taking land when that land can be represented as lacking a history. And I bring that up because that is something that Trump is now partaking in as he talks about other countries and he hints of invasion. He's basically trying to deny them their agency because by doing that, it's almost grooming people's mind to make it seem like a foregone conclusion. Oh, yeah, of course, that's part of America and should be, just as Russia has been doing with its neighbors. So when you see that type of talk, that type of belittling and undermining of a nation's agency, that's the whole point of that, to basically make it easier to colonize them. Yes, hi-fi.
Thank you for bringing up land, because they did just amend the reconciliation bill, right, to allow the sale of public lands, federal public lands. These people are extractive. These people take. These people are going to destroy our national parks. They're going to log them. They're going to mine them. They're going to turn some of the most beautiful places in America into pits of toxic waste. It's going to be bad. So I don't know. Maybe call some people, call some senators, call some representatives, and be like,
It's easier to stop it early than it is later. And, we talked about a general drop, I think, on the show last week. That is something that Butler is recommending. People who are doing this are hurt financially. They'll just keep on rolling. And so there's got to be a way to strategically, has been saying for so long, this has always been not only a war for truth and a war for reality, but it's been taken on these virtual battlefields. I do believe that pushback has to happen there. Jim just
And
mentioned
one,
element of it, showing ICE mobilizing and retreating. So that's very important. Okay, so now before I lose my internet while I'm still with you guys, I would very, very much like to talk about our guest, Russ Jones. He's a columnist for Byline. He just shared his cancerversary with us. It was a 15-year anniversary of being cancer free. Had he have gotten his full-blown symptoms and his full-blown tumor symptoms just a few months later, he likely would have died because the Tory governments have been defunding the NHS, which was the example of the world of how you actually take care of people. That's the National Health Services in the UK. In any case, I think it's really important that people in democratic nations understand that it does matter who you vote for, particularly in places that offer civilized health care for their citizens. Let's listen to Russ's first clip.
The NHS was started in 1947. Before that, we had private health, and we had just as many deaths as anybody else in the world did. Poor people just could not afford medical treatment at all. So the Labour government that came in 1945 at the end of World War II, one of the first things it said was it was going to take care of its citizens from cradle to grave. And it founded the NHS. And anybody under the age of 90 has spent their entire life in the NHS. They were born there, all their treatments happened. And this is a service where you can walk into any doctor's surgery or you can walk into any hospital, get all the treatment that you require and walk out and not pay a single.
gosh, it would be nice to live in a place
Why
like
that's
that.
important.
Socialism.
Well, why that's important? Why that's important is he had ultimately $750,000 of medical care and he received a bill for absolutely zero. In places where people still have that type of access to decency and care, they should be fighting for it and not succumbing to all of this populist anti-immigrant bullshittery. Of course, he talks about how Nigel Farage is able to weaponize immigrants coming in, and again we've seen that there's always the other. Everywhere we look, wherever there is a movement to try to demolish democracy, there is somebody well funded by oligarchs who is talking about you know basically just raging on anti-immigrant rhetoric. So something to, be aware of.
I mean, what they did there was what Republicans have been doing in America, right? Which is deliberately tearing down anything that looked like socialism. And the reason for that, let's be very clear, is socialism is not profitable to enormous rapacious companies, and they don't like it. They don't like when things just work. The problem with, and forgive me for going off for a second, but the problem with attaching you've got this socialism versus capitalism thing. And the problem is that capitalism fundamentally does not work when there are moral and human considerations that must be factored into an industry. And it is an industry, whether we like it or not. Everybody needs healthcare in the entire world. It is a huge fucking industry. And the question is, who's going to control that? Is it going to be a company who has a board of directors and a fiduciary duty to maximize profits over humans? Or is it going to be an imperfect, but at least theoretically non-denominational government? And when you're dealing with health, human lives, pain, suffering, things like that, the capitalist system is just fucking terrible for it. It's just wrong. It's a mismatch. And it is always been the aim of the adversary to take that away. It's what FDR's entire project was about putting in a system where the very basics of life were not something that people had to worry about. And they've been tearing it down in America ever since, and they tore it down in the UK. And as a general movement, we all have to just start rejecting this idea that just because something is run by the government that's a bad thing. It's
Right.
Are you telling me that the CEO of my health insurance company, who makes $2,700 an hour, isn't really worth all that money?
I
Well,
don't know.
so a couple of things really were interesting about
It's hard
Russ's
for me
interview.
to not make a Luigi joke there, so I didn't.
Yeah, please don't.
One is
No.
one thing I think I just heard a snort. One thing I wanted to say.
That was Jim. I was on mute.
It was
I
a
think I might
snort
have just
instead
heard
of
a
a bad joke. That's
That's what we get. Good times.
I had 10
So
of them
Russ
went
talked
by
about
and I
how
didn't say it.
England is not necessarily a religious country, but if there would be a universal religion, it would be the NHS. It was something that was so valued. And again, it's not the immigrants coming that has made the NHS not function like it used to. It's the defunding of it. It's the privatizing of elements of it. It's all the things that Jim was just saying about what Republicans have been doing to destroy things in America and destroy institutions. And when did we learn that big government's actually a good thing? When did we learn that big government, when it comes to universal health care, is a good thing? When we were dealing with COVID and suddenly everybody had access to good care and access to vaccines, and who then tries to blow that up? All the pro-Kremlin hacks that currently are in Trump's administration. They want us to be sick as opposed to, the pro-democracy factions that would actually like people to be well and have access to health care. Yes, I see two
I'm
fingers
going
up.
first.
Whoever is,
They want you broke. They want you confused. They want you sick. And they want you angry.
Yeah. So I don't know if people saw Casey Means. So if you missed the beginning of the episode, Hi-Fi played a video mashup that I created of Tulsi Gabbard at a cult gathering, playing the ukulele, singing Hare Krishna over and over again. Hare Krishna. But I mean,
Hare Rama.
And I matched it up with our new Surgeon General, who's a very peppy 37-year-old who has an MD but didn't finish her residency. So a surgeon, by the way, has to put their hands on people. That's what a surgeon does. Casey Means is not legally allowed to put her hands on a patient because she didn't finish her fucking deal. She didn't finish. So she is not a doctor in the sense of being able to touch a patient, even though now she's the Surgeon General of the United States.
Yeah.
And
what a time to be alive.
Casey is a holistic health professional who likes to talk ad nauseum about mitochondrial uncoupling and about how the metabolistic displacement of your body is everything wrong, and if you just eat right, you'll never get cancer, and you'll never get this, and you'll never get that. And also the God Mother tells her through the synthesis of the cosmos that these are the right things to do. And thanks, boy, howdy. What the fucking fuck? Anyway, that was my little Casey Means.
Hey, Heidi, you should introduce another clip.
Yeah, I was just saying this woo stuff, well, it's so amusing. It's so freaking dangerous. It is so lethal. And it's perfect for this administration filled with traitors, quacks, charlatans, etc. I found the quote from Jason's. Go ahead.
Somebody asked Trump about her in the fucking White House, and he said, "Oh, I don't know her. Bobby likes her."
Yeah, that's perfect.
What? Wait, you're the president, and you just what? Anyway,
no, reality TV fascism.
Bobby likes her.
Yeah, reality TV fascism.
And by the way, if
so
Bobby
said,
likes her is usually
bad.
For that
Yeah,
person.
bad. Back to erasing history, Jason Stanley. I promised the quote, and this is probably the one. Russia today is the world's most clearly fascist nation, and the country's 2022 invasion of Ukraine and subsequent operations to at least amount to at least a cultural genocide. involving, for example, the mass removal of Ukrainian children for their families for adoption. And he goes on to explain all the ways that they are trying to erase Ukrainian history and culture. And I just bring that up because, again, for those who may be having a difficult time explaining what's happening in America, I encourage you to look at Russia and anything that Jim and I have written about Russia in the 90s, and you may get a sense of what's actually happening. So that is a really bad segue into our very next clip from Russ.
What are we on, 2 or 3? Two?
I think so.
At that period, nobody really seemed to care very much about migrants in this country. Half of the doctors and nurses who treated me, at least half, were migrants. I was fairly nonchalant and stoical about what I thought was my impending doom. But a couple of nights before I went in for my surgery, I found myself unexpectedly having a little bit of a weep in my bed one night. And a Malaysian nurse, I remember she was Malaysian, but I can't remember her name, and it's just gone forever. But she came and sat by me. She didn't say a word. She just brought a chair over and she sat by my bed. And she pulled the curtains around my bed and she sat and held my hand for about 2 or 3 hours. And it's one of the most moving and intimate and personal things that's ever happened to me. And of all the people all the surgeons and oncologists and professors and doctors who cared for me, it's that personal care that you get from an individual that stuck with me the most.
Can you please tell us all the different countries that the people who helped you were from? Because I think it's really remarkable.
I don't think I could begin to list them, but specific examples. One of the major doctors who took care of me was Polish. My surgeon who did the surgery on me to remove my kidney and my cancer and treat me, it was 11-hour surgery. He was Greek. I don't just mean like in the sense that you might say Irish American or Greek American. They were actually born in Greece and had moved to the UK. They were first generation immigrants in the UK. My anesthesiologist was Indian. My oncologist was, I had 2 oncologists. One was Greek. I had a Lebanese doctor. I had multiple nursing staff from Africa, from the Indian subcontinent, and from Pakistan and Bangladesh. I had French. There was a German doctor who wanted to fly across to the UK to do the surgery and ended up not doing it. He took a look at how big the cancer was and decided he didn't want to touch it. But I mean, countless people from all over the world, and it's one of those things that I think that in the whole debate that ended up following this around Brexit in 2016, which regardless of what everybody says was just a protest against migrants, the thing that people forget about this was the migrants that we would have been able to operate in this country, we would be unable to function. I don't just mean the NHS, I mean across the entire.
Yeah, so UK, if you're listening, rebuke Nigel Farage, rebuke all these racists who are trying to other people because it leads to nothing good. We're watching that happen in America, and it leads to absolutely nothing good. It leads to a lot of bad things.
Yeah, the other thing that the UK really should do is not make the same mistake that America did and allow Palantir to infect everything. Palantir is stage 4 government cancer, and America has it. Palantir has already gotten the health records of every person in the UK through the NHS, which is just unbelievably stupid and insane. And NATO is now talking about partnering with Palantir. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you people? Like, I don't understand. The head, again, the head of Palantir UK is the grandson of Oswald Mosley, the head of the British Union of Fascists. Of all the people, the British people, listen to me. Of all the people in the whole world that Peter Thiel could pick for Palantir UK, he picked Oswald Mosley's mega grandson. Oswald Mosley is the most infamous fascist in British history. Why would he do that? Why would he do that? Because he's a fucking fascist and he's laughing at you. You should not let this motherfucker in your country to do what he's done here, which is to weaponize your information against you in your elections, in your private life, by smearing you, all kinds of shit. Don't do it. Stop it. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. I
Nobody's
had the
listening,
same.
but I have to try.
We do our best. I had the same conversation when I was in the UK a few weeks ago for the 6th anniversary of Byline Times, where I told people, do not let Musk's money in your country. Do not let him influence your elections. Same thing. And it's interesting because I had Craig Unger on my Betty Dangerous happy hour this Tuesday, and Craig basically said that Musk's purchase of Twitter was a $44 billion campaign donation. And I was like, you know what? That's right. Yes, it was a $44 billion PSYOP, Canon High Fidelity. You've said that too. But also a $44 billion campaign donation to sway the election for Trump. And that is exactly what happened. And that's exactly what Brent Allpress, our friend who's a open source intelligence investigator in Australia, warned us about prior to the election. Would you like to see another clip, or do you have some hand signals that I'm not?
I'm glad you brought up Brent because I was just talking to Brent about the Australian elections recently, and he told me something really, really fascinating. Um, there was a 1,000-year-old waka, which is a type of Polynesian, Micronesian ocean-going canoe found in North America, and there were stories about interactions with the turtle people. But if that's true, this trade route and this interactions predate Columbus by about 600 years. So, we know the Vikings were here before Columbus, and now we know the
Wait, what are you
Polynesians
talking
and the
about?
Micronesians. What?
I'm so confused. You're trying.
Sorry. I was
What
just
the hell are you
annoyed
talking
because
about?
Donald Trump was saying that Columbus Day was back, and Brent
Oh,
just gave me a lovely story about, no, actually, it's not.
yeah, Columbus is a bitch. That's
He
a
was,
that's a made up story by white people. I'm sorry, but that's fucking bullshit. That whole
yeah,
thing
the whole Euro
is
thing,
absolute
you really got
bullshit,
to get over it,
and
man.
that's the reason why Trump wants it back, because he wants this Jim Crow ahistorical nonsense back in American schools, which is why he put the wrestling lady in charge of dismantling the Department of Education, the lady who thinks, by the way, that artificial intelligence is called A1.
All I know is that we do so much work on this show and in our Substacks, all of us in our investigative work. And the only thing people are going to take away from this show is Jim saying Columbus is a bitch. So thank you very much for that, Jim.
You got to give them the sound bites. That's
Oh,
all.
you sure do. You sure do. Speaking of sound bites, let's hear the third clip from Russ.
Which said, does this mean that the Tufton Street organization has now taken over number 10 Downing Street? And the head of one of the organizations replied to it with one word answer, just said, yes. Now, for 20 years, they told us that what this country needed was a political realignment and an economic focus that's very similar to what Donald Trump is trying to do right now, and which Liz Truss did 2 years before. And they were cock a hoop when she came into office. All their dreams were about to come true. And in 49 days, she crashed the economy so completely that she made her entire party toxic for a generation, and she was thrown out of office. The Chancellor of the Exchequer, she managed to work through 4 Chancellors of the Exchequer, 4 Treasury Ministers in 49 days. Her entire party disintegrated. The economy went off a cliff. The pound was ruined. It cost us around about $480 million, which is about 6% of our GDP. And it cost us that in 49 days. It basically just wiped out the economy. And I see exactly the same thing starting to happen in the US now. So it's not all bad news in the US, because we can manage to get rid of Liz Truss in 49 days, and there's no election there. That was just her own party rebelling against what she'd done, because they suddenly realized that she was political.
They suddenly realized she was political suicide. So, Tom Tillis, if you're listening, gather up some of your asshole friends and decide if you want to
Yeah.
continue along this path.
So shout out to parliamentary democracy for a minute, by the way. When all this shit is said and done, we're going to need to make some fixes, big fixes. And I think one of those fixes is that we're going to have to be able to throw out somebody like Donald Trump when he starts doing shit like this. And that's why Liz Truss only lasted 50 days, right? Because their system, provides for that. And so do a lot of other systems, around the world that weren't invented 250 years ago. Our system is a fucking marvel. I mean, what they did, in the 18th century is incredible. But
Right.
The reality is, it needs a software update, and we can use this. We can use a constitution. It works fine, but you actually have to pay attention to what it means, as opposed to what a bunch of idiots have perverted it to mean over the decades.
Right. Right. While we're on this note, I just want to sneak in another quote that is something that I think is really important for our viewers to sort of wrap their heads around. When I was in Paris, I was looking around at this beautiful city, thinking to myself, I wonder if the prime minister in 1940 cut some deal with Hitler to preserve Paris when he actually capitulated to the Germans. And my Parisian friend said, no, the person who actually saved Paris from destruction was a Nazi general who defied Hitler's orders to destroy Paris. He defied the orders because he thought it was military futility. He loved the city, but he also decided that Hitler was a madman. And afterwards, when he was in prison, this particular general named General von Choltitz, it's a difficult word to say. He basically said this after the fact. We all shared the guilt. We went along with everything, and we half took the Nazis seriously instead of saying, to hell with you and your stupid nonsense. I misled my soldiers into believing this rubbish. I feel utterly ashamed of myself. Perhaps we even bear more guilt than those uneducated animals, referring to Hitler and his cronies as uneducated animals. And it's like, uh, people like Tom Tillis, if you're listening, man, gather some people up and revolt against this, because it's going to lead to nothing but horror and a permanent stain on America. They've already permanently stained America. How long that stain, how deep it goes is still up to what people decide to do next. But, if that general could defy Hitler's order, then obviously there are people within the regime in America who can defy Trump as well.
I don't write a lot of good news pieces for obvious reasons, because it's bad news mostly what's going on. But I also, when there is good news, it's important to remember that, this is not some inexorable path towards darkness and despair, right? History is not written yet, and neither are the winners chosen yet, right? Yeah, we're behind enemy lines, blah blah blah. But we've been here before. If the fucking Catholic Church can say, yeah, you know what, we're gonna put the guy that literally took a swipe at JD Vance 3 months ago and put him in the Vatican. And by the way, he's pretty young, 69 for Pope. That's a commitment they made, in pretty short order. I think it's important to remember that nothing is forever, and this is not, an inexorable slide towards death. Are we headed towards, bad places? Absolutely. But if we can do enough, yelling about these assholes, trying to round up our neighbors, and thwart them enough, we can get a few, semi-decent Republicans to fucking step up. As I've said before, I'm not here to lose. So,
No, no. Thanks, Jim. I do want to remind everybody that years ago I followed the money on the privatization of prisons all the way to Robert Mercer profiting off of that. So I do want our investigative allies out there to be paying attention to who's going to be profiting off these deportations and incarcerations, because there's going to be a money grab there. And that is why I go back to, if you want to hurt these people and you want to shorten the lifespan of this regime, hit them hit them in their wallets, figure out ways to disrupt their cash flows. And that is something that I think everybody, their head around. General, again, seems smart. We have one more.
We do.
So the richest 10% of Britons, their wealth since 2010 has increased 537 times more than the poorest 10% of Britons. 500 times more wealth. The poorest 10. The richest 127 people in the country, that's all the billionaires that we have in the UK, 127 of them. Their wealth has increased 1,000%. But for the rest of the country, the poorest 90%, average wages have fallen more than £1,500 per year since 2010. At the same time, GDP growth has increased every year. Our GDP appears to be growing. We've grown 1.2%, we've grown 2.2%, we've grown 3%. Where's that money going? Well, 2/3 of all the money worldwide that's been generated, all the new money that's been generated worldwide since 2010 has gone to the richest 1% of people. And the third that's left over has to be shared between the rest of the other 99. And that's what's happened. What's happened is that prices have shot up.
Right.
Cost of living is terrible. At the same time, there are immigrants moving into your area because you live in a poorer area and they can afford the housing there. And therefore, it just makes an opening for people like Nigel Farage and his Brexit party, who is, the inheritor of Oswald Mosley's title, really. The far-right party leading an insurgent group in the UK.
Wow.
They tell this simple story that it's immigrants that are the problem. And it's just frankly not true. What's true is that we simply stopped redistributing money in the way we have done for 100 years. We just stopped.
Speaking of stopping doing it, I came across something that I just want to share with our audience. 19 richest households in the United States, a 1 trillion increase. That is not sustainable. I'm sorry. There's no way this can go on.
That's what has to be disrupted.
We're gonna have to take a big fucking whack out of all of them. I have in the past, and I'm very serious about it, said there should be a global movement to say, if you have $1 billion, then you win. You won. You should get a party and then you should never get another dollar. Like, fuck you. You don't get any more.
I think that number is too high. I think 300 million is about as high as anyone needs.
We can meet in the middle. I don't give a shit.
Right. The number is debatable.
Hold on. The point is that if you have $1 billion and all you can do is think about, I'll get another $1 billion. Oh my God, 1 billion's not enough. I need another billion. And then if you have 10 billion and you're like, oh my God, I need 100 billion, you're fucking insane. You're just sick in your head. And all of those people should be given a pat on the head, have their bank accounts taken, except for $1 billion, and then they should be put away. Seriously, fuck those people. They're psychopaths.
I understand what you're saying.
And I'm serious.
The issue is, as predicted back in the 50s, that they would grow bigger than the governments, that these wealth hoarders would actually grow bigger and more powerful than governments. And we've seen that happen in America, which is how we have had our democracy just hammered. It's basically been that money hurting us, that $44 billion campaign donation that somebody like Elon Musk makes. In any case, you guys know that's our show, and now you know what you need to do. You figure out a way to disrupt that, because that is one way that we can kneecap this regime. So hurt them in their wealth hoarding. That's what I
If
have.
you hear
That's what's on my
any
mind.
other ICE, if there's any other ICE raids going on, you let me know. Fuck
Word.
those guys.
Hi-Fi, any final thoughts or final videos for us this week?
Yeah, final thought is weather's getting nice out there, people. Do what you can, get out in the streets, protest, make some noise. It's now or never, man.
Yeah. Word.
And the final word goes to a fella named Tim O'Connor. He was recorded again by my friend Ben Gage at bengagemusic.com, and I'll just let him take it.
Broken idols, broken dreams, careless love and poison streams, space junk lying, leaders lying, poor folks trying to save their dreams, trying to save their dreams. A restless world of deep confusion, careless love of deep illusion, constant images of hatred, killing things that we hold sacred. It's just an ordinary day on planet Earth. Seems like trouble from the moment of our birth. Maybe we'll all wake up and find it's just a dream. Maybe we'll never understand just what it means. As the bullets fly past our ears, see the angel disappear into a haze of dust and fear. The devil's always waiting near. Technology that shined on us, quickly turning into rust, stranded down beside the road, short-sighted dreams soon explode. It's just an ordinary day on planet Earth. Seems like trouble from the moment of our birth. Maybe we'll all wake up and find it's just a dream. Maybe we'll never understand just what it means. Like a rats upon a sinking ship, the Garden of Eden's a rubbish tip. The last surviving wilderness could soon be yet another mess. Just a bloody mess. Fighting for the oil and reason, true love turning into treason. Bullies in the seat of power, this is not our finest hour. It's just an ordinary day on planet Earth. Seems like trouble from the moment of our birth. Maybe we'll wake up and find it's just a dream. Maybe we'll never understand just what it means. Religion keeps dividing us, should bring us all together. And if we're all not careful, could destroy us all forever. Paranoid and terrified and overfed by greed. How much can we sacrifice? How much do we need? It's just an ordinary day, planet Earth. Seems like trouble from the moment of our birth. Maybe we'll all wake up and find it's just a dream. Maybe we'll never understand just what it means. Everybody, it's just an ordinary day on planet Earth. Seems like trouble from the moment of our birth. Maybe we'll all wake up and find it's just a dream. Maybe we'll never understand just what it means.